myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say to...
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Wednesday night, Geordies here, Geordies there. Full complement of lads tonight. Mitch, George, Stu, Steve's, Owlead and Steve joining me to chat about Newcastle for an hour. And first of all, Kevin Hawthorne. Keep your head down, son. I've seen the news tonight before I came on air, and 15 inches of rain he might get in Florida. He's stuck in the middle of that horrendous hurricane. Thanks for still tuning in, mate. I hope everything's all right. I've seen the devastation that's caused, and obviously Hurricane Ian is certainly not finished yet. So I hope everything's okay with you, Kevin, mate, out in Florida. Okay, plenty to talk about as always. Let's finish off the international chat, Mitch. England relegated. Where to? I don't know. We're discussing before we came on air. Does that mean they play Sunderland now? Or and Scotland, is Stu sitting beaming? In fact, what I'm going to do, hold on. There you go, Stu. England versus Scotland, live on the screen. So first, your views of the England games, Mitch, and that 3-3 draw against Germany, which saw us, at least we didn't bow out with a whimper.
I think for me, we've seen too many questions and not enough answers. A question about the enthusiasm for the English players for this enforced competitive friendly idea that is the Nations League, which was always a little bit of a nonsense and a bit of a folly. And you can see some people have taken it more seriously than others. And I've got a distinct impression that perhaps some of our players weren't taking it terribly seriously when they've been involved. Question marks over Gareth Southgate, who will tell you in one sentence he picks on form and that Trippier is deserving to be in the squad over Alexander-Arnold because he's in form, and then plays Maguire and Shaw, who can't get a game for that club. He's always had his favourites and he always will, and it looks like he's going to stick with it come hell or high water. And it's a funny old hill he's picked to die on, but that's the one he's going to. Because take that into the World Cup, then we've got a big problem. If he can't motivate them, again, that's big question marks. What must Ivan Toney think? Called up in the England squad for 2 games that effectively were almost dead rubbers, and he wasn't involved in either. What must he feel like? What was the point of that? Just what was the point of that? Don't get it. Really don't get it. You lose a player through injury. Who does he call up? Jordan Henderson. Well, if he doesn't know what Jordan Henderson can do for him in his midfield by now, there's a problem. Just the haphazard, higgledy-piggledy nature of it all, it just adds more questions than answers. Like I said the other day, the best description I've seen of him is Steve Bruce in a 28-inch waistcoat. And I think we're left scratching our heads, and with regards to the whole notion of promotion and relegation and attaching a degree of seeding for the European draws to it, we've shot ourselves in the foot, and we've only got ourselves to blame for that. And at the end of the day, the buck stops with the manager. I can't see anybody in their right mind getting shot of him with the World Cup on the horizon. But many other managers in a similar situation would be under much more pressure, I think.
Yeah, safety sent to George Hayes as well, big supporter of the food bank and, of course, NUFC Matters. George, I hope everything's okay with you. Keep your head down, mate. Keep safe, you and the family, mate. Let's hope you and Kevin both come through this safe and sound. Yes, don't forget, ask George. People are already getting the questions in. I don't even need to say it now. Ask George. Halfway through the programme, get your questions in. People even sending them in to Mitch now before we even come on air. So, got a good question for George. Get it in. Can't always guarantee that he'll answer it, but he gets a bit temperamental like that now that he's famous. Obviously, from your perspective, Scotland, been a good week.
It's been an exceptional week. It tells you the difference, chalk and cheese, with the mentality of the two squads. As Mitch said, they're taking it serious, but I don't think anyone plays for the country and not take it serious, since Scotland had 7 of their best defenders out, and they've only conceded 1 goal in the last 3 games. So I think they've overachieved. So I will say that I think the Nations League is fantastic, but there's a caveat. When it comes to the next round of fixtures, when we're playing against the Belgiums and Frances and Spains and stuff like that, and then our group stages, then I'll just be like England and say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's not important. But had England been winning it, then it was the best competition ever. But anyway, I was late from work, so I've just been trying to eat my tea, but I got these things delivered from England. I don't know if you can see them.
Sour grapes.
A bit sour.
Unbelievable. I was expecting a kilt or something. I wasn't expecting sour grapes.
I was going to get a tab of shot, the cups with the ginger wings on and stuff like that, but I'd probably be called gingerist, so I didn't get that. So, no, but to be fair to Scotland, they've gelled really well. They've got a club mentality going on there, and they're fighting for each other, and they really were backs to the wall on the last legs. I spoke to JC yesterday not just before the kickoff, but in the afternoon, and he says we're really all down to our bare bones. But everyone to a man left everything on the pitch, and that's all you can ask of any team that you're supporting. And there was a few nail-biting, nervy moments, but it wouldn't be the same supporting Scotland if it was plain sailing. But what it does do, it's for Scotland's perspective, it gets them a better seeding for their next European Championships. So instead of they're making the championships bigger, so the top two from each group will go through, and Scotland will be in the second pot of teams. So realistically, it gives them the best chance of qualifying for a while. And even if they fail to do that, now they're in the top group, they'll get a playoffs. What like Wales did, that's how Wales qualified for the World Cup. So it's good for Scotland. For England, we talked about it on Sunday, didn't we? On the professionals, it just seems to be wandering from one mishap to another, and a lot of it is on their own doing. The Ivan Toney thing, and then slagging people off like Trent Alexander. I'm not slagging them up, but calling them out publicly. There's so much wrong there, and it just makes you wonder, is the spirit in the camp what it should be? Because they do have a squad of players there that are capable of winning the trophy, but whether it's egos or whether it's the tactics, whether they've lost the manager's lost the dressing room, we don't know. But the key thing for me is that if you look at the Nations League, it does get bigger attendances than what friends do, and generally is competitive. So I understand the idea behind it. I don't think everyone understands the rules behind it, which is probably why it's not getting as much praise as it should. But I can't complain with how Scotland have performed in it, and them and Italy are the only two teams that have never lost a home game in the Nations League since it started. So fair play to them.
Well, just a quick one on the player there on the screen. Mudryk played well versus Scotland last night. What was it? Was he any good?
Sour. He's a good player. He's very quick, but he missed a good chance. Well, saying he missed a good chance, it was saved by Craig Gordon, who's 39-year-old, and he's like getting better with age. He's like a good wine, and the fact that he supports Hearts is a double boost for like members of my family and myself. But he would put most English keepers to shame, and you wouldn't normally say that about Scotland goalkeepers over the years. And like say the defenders that they have, they've got quality defenders, but the four defenders they've got that they play in the Premier League, which is your Nathan Pattersons, Robertson, Tierney, and young Hickey, who's at Brentford. Three of them were out last night, and Hickey even got injured on Saturday's game. On Saturday's game. So they really were down to the bare bones defensively, and as we all know, Ukraine have got some phenomenal attackers up front that can hurt you with pace. And Scotland played a different tactic. They changed the formation totally. They normally play 3 at the back. They played a 4-4-1-1, and it worked. And it seemed to be that they were very well drilled, and they all knew the role. And the most important thing to any team, and this is what Eddie Howe's proven, is if you get the players to buy into to what you're trying to achieve, it's half the battle. And Scotland seem to have that at the moment, and long may it continue.
Yeah. Okay, George, what's your take on the international week?
Well,
highlights and lowlights. I mean, I can't with a name like Mitchell, I can't not profess a glimmer of happiness that Scotland did well. However, one of the things I would like JC and Steve Clark to do is to write Eddie Howe and tell him how many Weetabix they're giving Fraser when he goes to play for them, because he's a different player once he pulls that blue shirt on. The other night when he played, he came on as an impact substitute. What an impact! He made more passes, laid on the goals, and almost scored a goal as well in that short spell he was on. And they couldn't touch him, couldn't get near him. I've never seen him play that as effectively as that for Newcastle. So whatever they're giving him for breakfast, then we could do some in England. With the England team, so disappointing. Nobody's going to tell me that Phil Foden and others, young ones like that, suddenly become bad players overnight. But when you see where he plays them, that may be part of the reason. The other thing is, not to be too controversial, is that I don't know if anybody else has noticed, I've noticed since Graham Jones came back to Newcastle and left England, they haven't had a good result, have they? Not one good result England haven't had. The other things the lads have covered, the Maguire, Shaw business, I really don't know what that's about. You either pick on form or you don't pick on form. And Southgate seems to think he can have it both ways. Well, he's been found out during this sequence of games that he can't have it both ways, because it ends up biting you in the backside. The other thing is that when he brought on the two substitutes against Germany, what a difference they made. Now, is he just telling me that those lads didn't show that in training and shouldn't have been on it in the beginning instead of as a last-ditch exercise to try and rescue the game? No, it's there's something wrong there, either on the field or off the field. There's something just not working right. And the other thing, the sad thing is that I'm really crestfallen for Nick Pope to have that blunder just for the equaliser. It was awful, but that's the problem about being a goalkeeper, isn't it? If you're a centre forward, you can miss 100 chances, but everybody remembers the one you get. If you're a goalkeeper, you can make 100 saves, but everybody remembers the one that you didn't get. So it was a bit sad that happened. But as a tournament, as has already been mentioned by the lads, I'm still struggling to get my mind where it's supposed to be. My understanding is that with all the changes, with Scotland getting promoted here and Wales and England getting demoted there, they could all actually, 3 of them, be in the same setup next year, which is interesting. But will it work? I don't know. But on one side, very disappointing. On the other side, nice to see some people doing well, and I include Ryan Fraser in that.
Steve, your take on International Week? I'm glad it's over.
I'm still sleeping. Still asleep. Absolutely none. It's a weird setup. Let's face it. Why did the Nations League get started? It got started apparently because UEFA and the big wig there wanted to take control of the friendlies. Because let's face it, UEFA got nothing from friendly internationals. So that's why they set the Nations League up. So they had some control. They brought it in under the guise that lower clubs were finding it difficult to get friendly games against top clubs, top countries. That was their excuse. But it's all about money. It's all about growth. And as from 2024-25, they're even bringing in the 10 South American clubs into the Nations League as well. So this is where it's going. This is the way of control. This is UEFA, like, sort of basically dropping one on FIFA. You know, it's all this. It's all the politics, and once again, football politics takes over. In terms of England themselves, I look at that, and I look at some of those players that were in the squad the other day, and you've got the likes of Jordan Henderson. That was his 70th cap. You know, Kevin Keegan only got 63 caps. Yeah, that's where we're at. You know, and you start looking at. I went down a list. I thought once I saw that, I thought, gee, me. Kyle Walker 70 caps. And then you got Southgate 59 caps. And it's worked out. What is really standing out is you've got the likes of Harry Maguire 48 caps and Eric Dyer on 47. That's like what 12 and 13 more caps than Jack Charlton got playing for England, you know. And then you go through and you see that Jack Grealish has got 24 caps, but the likes of, you know, guys that the people of my year remember, like Alan Hudson and Rodney Marsh, they only got 9 caps between them at each when they were playing. And Les Ferdinand's only got 17 caps. But Marcus Rashford's got 46, you know, and it shows you that international football's become a bit of a mockery because there's so many games played now. I mean, if England played the same number of games now as they used to play in the 70s and 80s, then I think you'd find that most of those players would barely scrape into double figures, quite frankly. And it's just one of those. Yet again, the talk about players playing too much football. Look at the amount of international football that some of those players have had in the last 3 or 4 years, you know, and what this is what annoys me, because we're going to hear shortly from the EPL, and it's only a matter of time with the Americanization, etc., which we've gone on and on about, that they'll start reducing the Premier League. The Premier League will go down to 18. They'll try and make it like the rest of Europe, and it's just that whittling away. But at the same time, at the other end, they're stacking more games on at international level, you know, more tournaments. And I don't think the Nations League gives, and obviously that Ivan Toney situation, exactly that, it doesn't give managers the impetus to try and blood new players. That's what friendly internationals were for. It was to rest your top players and give some of the lesser players an opportunity to shine at international level, or at least break their duck. And Ivan Toney didn't even get that because
signed it up there, because what they were saying is, well, you talk about blooding players. The last 2 games for England were dead rumours. They could have easily have blooded players, and I think that's what the outcry is, because he kept these loyal players, or the ones he's loyal to. But someone said to me today on Twitter that this Nation League is pointless, and it's not pointless because England got a draw, didn't it? They did get a point out of the host.
Yeah, it's also not pointless because if like you do well in the Nation League, doesn't it give you an added bonus, and it gives you something for when you get into the European Championships? It decides where you're going to be in the European Champions setup. So that's the purpose of it as well. You know, they've thrown that other little device, plus they've got this ridiculous cup final, for want of a better word, where the 4 teams go through and they play this competition at the end of the season. And that again, that'll come in, and there is talk of trying to follow that model for the Champions League. And when they do that, that's when you'll suddenly find those Champions League games are suddenly going into the Americanization and playing it possibly in America for the Champions League. So you'll end up with a week where you'll have the semi-final played on the one Saturday, and that semi-final played on a Sunday, and then you'll have the Champions League final played the following Saturday. That's where it's heading, because they're using the Champions League, this model that they're using for the Nations League as a trial to see how successful it is, and that then all of a sudden it's one city. And that one city is where all those games will be played, and everybody will be there together. It's the way that they're mucking around with the game, quite frankly, that just leaves a sour taste.
Yeah, Al-Walid, international football. It's a boring week for Newcastle fans if you don't follow international football. But what have you made of England and Scotland's results?
Well, I really like what Mr. Sifesi said. It's really well done, and really explain a lot of things. You expose them very well. For international, everybody play differently. Southgate, I guess that he liked the player. He went to final of last Euro, so he maybe, I think he just thinking he will do a little adjustment, and he think this team can do in World Cup very well, and I think so as well. But I have when I watched the game, I didn't see how Maguire, and Maguire, he was better. He was better shape. Yeah, he have good days, but now he's really fragile, and any mistake will يعني ruin everything. So I don't know why they insist, and putting Eric Dyer in this center back doesn't, for me, I think he's more like defense midfielder better. So I think there is weakness in the back line. I think it should be in the Nation League. You know better because it's in Europe. But for example, in Asia, in Saudi Arabia, for example, we don't care unless it's World Cup or qualification of World Cup or Asia Cup. That's all. But any other league, we don't care about it. It should be good opportunity to other players who didn't make it to the first squad. So it could be like England B. This is just my point of view. I don't care much about the result. Even if Italy win over England, this is acceptable because different. Italy didn't qualify to World Cup. So for example, we didn't want Harry Kane to be injured because everybody, all the player mentality to not be injured. Everybody wants to play in the World Cup. So there is this is just for putting just preparation for World Cup. So I'm not really much give it much thought.
Okay, Steve.
Well, I've been against internationals mid-season for a long time. It's bored me silly the last week. Despite the good night out with the club on Friday, we're having that rubbish on against Italy because that was just a non-event, passing the ball backwards all the time. But I think it's dangerous playing games in midweek during the season. We're going to get a number of players coming back. Isaac got injured, Bruno, Chris Wood. We're going to get players coming back, and the way that the club game is now, I think having international matches in mid-season is just I don't know how you get the balance right. To me, England's been a London club for a long time. Southgate runs it with a club mentality. The fact that he's picking Maguire and Shaw, who have hardly played. You go back to George's days and when my early went and Steve, you picked form players for your clubs at that time. In the days of Alf Ramsey prior to winning the World Cup in '66, we didn't have half as many games in international matches. That is why, as we said earlier on, the caps that people had. I remember, I think it was Billy Wright was when I was a youngster. The Billy Wright had 105 caps, and that was a massive number. And I think Bobby Moore probably beat that. But now anybody's going to get 106 caps very quickly because of the number of games. So I would abolish internationals mid-season and have a qualifying tournament 1 year. After the season's finished, you'd finish the season earlier because you wouldn't have all the gaps that we'll have of a fortnight off. So you'd finish the season end of April. May into June, you have a qualifying 1 year World Cup the following year, then a qualifying for the European, then a qualifying for that. And then you can get the players away, fully concentrate on the international matches, and you wouldn't have the risk of players getting injured mid-season, which is hopefully what we're not going to have on the weekend. At least, hopefully Wilson will be back, and but we're likely to be missing Isaac from his ventures with Sweden.
Yeah, we are. Callum Wilson back though. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, as we get towards the back end of the program. Time for another one of these. My first tune match is this week from Alex Brett, and he says his first match was around 1990, a 4-1 home defeat against Wolves. I think we've spoke about that on the show, lads, haven't we? He took a ball square in the face on a clearance and had to hold back the tears because he was surrounded by Geordies. And there he is, Steve.
That's him.
Yes,
all four. Yeah,
horrendous. All four goals that day. New Year's Day, I believe it was. Yeah. So great stuff. Thanks for sharing that. Try and send us a bit more of a cheery one if you can in future. And just as well, people are asking about the true crime stuff we're doing, the other podcasts. What I've done is I have set up a different channel, the True Crime channel. So it's going to be a long, lethargic time for me to transfer all of the stuff over to there, but I am going to do it because a lot of people prefer just to have it all in one place. So it's starting from scratch on that level. So I'm going to put all the stuff from this channel onto there. I'm not going to take it off here, so you'll still be able to find it on here, but it'll be easier to find. So go across to the True Crime channel if you enjoy some of the alternative stuff I do, and you'll be able to find it all on there. Already up to 200 subscribers after a couple of days, but because of the regulations on YouTube, it takes a long time to add everything. But everything will be over there. You'll be able to go and see it if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Okay, next thing was sent in by Spenny that I wanted to speak to the lads about. And Steve Wilkinson, I'll start with you. This is a little thing that we've spoken about tickets, away tickets. We spoke about it on the show, loyalty points. Is it fair to have loyalty points? Some people who are younger supporters have got no chance of getting an away ticket. And a bit of criticism, I guess, from people who are buying tickets and then selling tickets on. So they're not actually going to the away games. They're buying them just to sell them on. Yeah. Not necessarily at a massively inflated price, although some do. They find their ways onto things, selling sites, etc. But this has come up that starting with our away game against Brentford in October, away tickets are allegedly going to have names and fans' numbers on them. Now, it says written on them. I find this a little bit bizarre. But anyway, some tickets will at random be retained and held for collection at away grounds with matching photo ID required for entry. Now, some people, Steve, will be over the moon with this, but it's going to, like every system, it's going to create an issue. It's going to create a problem because people like myself, for example, I want to go to Fulham this weekend. I can't go because my chosen mode of transport for that game would be the train. I can't go because there's a train strike. So I don't want to go on a bus and spend 5-6 hours going down there, 5-6 hours coming back. I don't want to spend a day there. I also don't want to have the inconvenience like some people are having to go through of going on Friday and coming back on Sunday and spending 2 nights in a hotel. So the obvious thing for me to do is to be able to sell that ticket. And if this kind of scheme comes in, what do I do? It's preventing me from selling that ticket. I don't know. But I understand that there needs to be something done, but I'm not sure if this is the answer. What's your thoughts, Steve?
Well, which club was that that had that? Because that's not, obviously we're playing Brentford at home, so it's not Newcastle. Brighton, is it right? I cannot see how that system is going to work, as you're saying, Steve, because the practicalities of checking everybody's photo ID as you go in, how old's the photo and all that sort of complications. It was a bit like when they were going to check everybody with COVID passes and all like that. I never got checked with a COVID pass. I don't know what anybody else did, but it's almost there as a threat to discourage. You're not supposed to use your mobile phone in the car, for example, but loads of people do. But I think it's a threat that's there. That if you have got the information, and I suppose they can print stuff on the tickets, but I can't see any checking going on. So I don't think it'll be something that's practical there. But I can understand them wanting to do it. In some ways, you're helping somebody, Steve, by giving the option to have your ticket. Otherwise, you just have to waste it. It's a bit like me. I didn't go to the Crystal Palace game, but I'm in a wheelchair place. So I cannot let somebody else sit in my seat unless they're in a wheelchair. And I offered it to a few people, but they weren't able to go. But it's sort of it's good to get as many people in as possible. So I can understand why they're trying to do it to prevent the sort of black market, which I guess is what's happening in a lot of cases. The tickets are being sold for extortionate prices for some games, and people are making profits out of getting tickets through loyalty schemes and then selling them on at a profit. So I can understand why they're doing it, but I cannot see it working in practice.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I will lead. You live abroad. When you come into England, you rely on someone to get you a ticket, I guess. But with Brighton suggesting this for the game against Brentford, it's clearly a new system. I mean, what's your thoughts on it?
Sorry, but I try to understand it very well. Why are they checking their photo ID?
It's just really because I think they don't want Newcastle fans to sell their tickets to, on. If you can't go, don't buy a ticket. So it gives other people the opportunity to buy a ticket, I guess.
Yeah, that's only one game, one match.
Yeah, but they could be doing that full time, and if they could do it for every game, and that could be if that's successful, it could end up being other clubs following in their suit.
Well, I mean, it's very hard for me to say something, but it's really weird, and I think the away ticket, the loyalty. So this is nothing to do with reality. With loyalty.
Yeah. Okay, Steve.
Where did this come from? Because I can't find it anywhere on the club's website. And it does say Brentford in October away, which we play at home.
This is Brighton. This is Brighton who suggested this, Steve.
It's not. It says Brentford, and we don't play Brighton. We don't play Brighton in October either, do we?
No, this is Brighton who are bringing this in.
Oh, it's Brighton. So it's not Newcastle. Brighton are bringing it in.
Not Newcastle. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Brighton have decided to bring in for this one particular game. For all their games, this is what we do. So for this one game, this is what happens for Newcastle fans.
Yeah.
What is the benefit to Brighton of doing that?
My concern, and the reason I brought this up when Spenny sent it was that this could be a situation which develops at other Premier League clubs. Brighton are testing this to see what they think, see if it's good. Now, somebody's made the point about ticket touts. Mark Pearson. Putting names on tickets is to discourage ticket touts from asking way over the top prices. So then you know where the tickets come from. If there's trouble inside the ground and a ticket's allocated to somebody, it's always been that kind of situation where they would say, well, that person's got that seat. That's there's ways and means of doing things, but I'm a bit concerned about this personally for the reasons that I gave.
Yeah, what you're supposed to do is if you can't go to the game, then you're not supposed to sell them on. As part of the terms and conditions, you're supposed to return the ticket to the club and allow the club to sell the ticket on to somebody else. You get a refund. That's the way it is. But the problem you've got is that you don't get your loyalty point for that. The whole purpose of a lot of people is to get the loyalty point. That's what they want. So it's a combination of the wanting to have control of your own ticket and want to sell it on or pass it on to a family member or a friend who can go at the game while you're hanging on to the loyalty point. But as I say, what the club have always said, whenever it's been discussed at fans forums, which they haven't had since 2019, by the way. I don't know why they haven't started a fans forum again, but that's up to them. But it's been discussed right from probably the very first fans forum meeting we had back in 2014, all the way through the last one in 2019. It's always come up every season talking about it. And the club's always said, we refer to the terms and conditions, you return your ticket, and that's what you do. And they always get told, well, nobody ever does that. And then they just go, well, what can we do? So now we're in a pickle because one club is now testing the water. They're probably testing the water, as people have said, because of the ticket touting situation. And they're probably doing it through an agency. And no doubt, to get around the £30 ticket, there'll be an added charge. There'll be something added to it. And it's also an inconvenience. So, once again, let's hear what the FSA have to say about it, because they're the people who like to talk about these type of things, these issues that fans have. So let's see what they've got to say when we suddenly realise how much fans are going to be inconvenienced by one club arbitrarily going through a system, which more than likely will end up with an additional fee put on. I don't know whether it'll definitely be that, but it wouldn't surprise me. You can tell I'm in a cynical mood this week, can't you?
yeah. Warming up nicely by Friday. George?
I'm all for solving problems if they're big problems. There's lots of problems in football at the moment. I don't see this as one of the big ones. When Newcastle go away, the way end's usually full. So that means that there's maybe 100, if you're lucky, 200 at the maximum. Or, even if it's 1,000, for God's sake, is it really that important that it needs to have all this structure and all this undercover cloak and dagger stuff to be done? Sell the tickets. If somebody's caught doing something wrong with the ticket, they don't get any more. End of story. That's how I would approach it. But to have this business where you're going to have to check IDs and photographs, and it's just a nonsense to me. If it was a major problem, then let's get down to it and solve it properly. My attitude would be, people do what they get the tickets, they do what they like with their tickets, but if they do something wrong with their tickets, they don't get any more. End of story. And that's how I would approach it.
Okay, yeah, good idea to have track and trace for tickets. It's a deterrent to ticket touts. Another person making that point. Thank you, Kevin, for that. Blue Rhythm Boy says apparently Everton had a fan-led spare ticket point where you could buy them and it's all been stopped. Could lead to more empty seats. Yeah. Bob says the Brighton approach would only work if they had an official resale site. So in your case, Steve, you can repost the ticket and get your money back. And Kenny says, is this away ticket ID photo another way of getting rid of away supporters? Something which we've spoke around before. And John Justice Allen keeps saying in the chat that e-tickets and scan your phone is just around the corner. And Blue Rhythm Boy says, people pretending to have tickets for a sale is a problem, defrauding desperate tickets. Go on, Steve.
Did you see the paragraph underneath? It said, any supporter found to be passing on away tickets will be subject to a 10 home match ban. During that time, the excluded supporter will not be able to purchase away tickets, and a 50-point loyalty point deduction will be made.
Wow.
That is even more scary. The fact that
absolutely
to catch somebody passing on an away ticket, they'll ban them from a home game for 10 games. They'll take 50 loyalty points off them, and will never be allowed to purchase an away ticket ever again. It's like, what the hell?
But certainly got people in the chat talking. Buller Boy says, I'm up for anything that stops ticket touts and the ridiculous prices, but this would deprive a multitude of people who could get to the game via hand-downs, friends, family, etc. It's a bad move. And Bob says, make ticket transfers simple and with no charge, and people may use it. Stu, it's got people talking, this one.
Yeah, I understand the reasoning behind it, and we've talked about this before, and you have on the Migos as well, about the loyalty points and how people can't get on the escalator of accumulating the points because the ones at the top are buying the tickets and not even going to the games. So it is a problem, but there's extreme measures of trying to deal with it, isn't it? There's some draconian measures out there. So to me, it will create issues, like Steve Wilkinson said, if everyone has to queue for ID. The whole point of, well, not the whole point, but part and parcel of going to the away game is you have a few pints, you get in the boisterous mood, you get in the ground, and if you then have to stand in the queue, it could actually lead to trouble if everyone's getting held up, or even surges, people trying to get in because the game's kicking off. Because there's no way they're going to say delay the kickoff because a few fans decide to have an extra pint or went at the normal time. So, you know, the car park attendant, you know, the one with the callus on his leg comes shuffling along, you can't come in here because you haven't shown your ID. So there is solutions, but it could also lead to empty spaces. Now, it is for away games. That's what Brighton, I'm not defending them here, but I understand the reason behind it. And it is to stop trouble. It's to stop touts. And there's some suggestions I wrote down there when Gary Milligan was there, was asleep, was you could put QR codes on tickets and they could just do random checks, you know, and if you match it, you're in. If you don't match, then you still get in, I suppose, but you get put on one side and you've got to explain it. If you've got a ticket that's got a QR code on, Steve, for example, your ticket for Fulham this weekend, and you can't go, you then tell them who can go, and as long as they're a member of the club, it costs what, £1 to join or a tenner or something to join the club membership scheme. As long as it goes to one of them, then it's monitored who's got the ticket. Because if that person takes your ticket and causes trouble, it's you that gets the blame, not the person in the seat.
Yeah.
So there is reasons behind it. So you can just pass on the QR code. I'm not going, but to make it more insular regarding Newcastle, it is a problem we have talked about before. Now, unfortunately for me and that's for Mitch as well, we used to go all the way games. Now we can't go to any because we don't live anywhere near the country. But yeah, we've still got friends who go to the games. We're on a panel with friends who go to the games, and you hear the stories like, yeah, so and so goes, and he just buys up 5 tickets on his loyalties, and we can't get a ticket, or so and so got a ticket. And the whole idea of going to the away games was going with a group of friends. And if you've got like a hardcore of 5 or 6 friends, and only 3 of them get tickets one game, and 4 gets the tickets for the next game, it takes away a lot of the fun. And so if you've got a QR code on your ticket, you say, right, I'm not going, but for example, George is going on my ticket, then that's fine. That solves that one. As long as you tell them 24 hours beforehand. But if someone's abusing the system, for example, 3 games in a row, and they keep buying tickets, not use them, then they lose the loyalty points for those games. They don't lose the tickets, they don't get sent to jail or anything, but they just lose the loyalty points. It stops them accruing these points on the benefit of someone else using the tickets.
Yeah, it's a strange. Yeah. Mitch, what's your take on it?
I'm going to have to charge you for it. I'm going to go off, so I'll come back on in about 5 minutes.
All right.
Sense a little government intervention here. They're desperate to tag football fans as the root of all evil and everything. Cocaine, that's football fans' fault. Fights in the street, that's a football fans' fault. Farting on trains, that's football fans. We get the blame for everything. We get the blame for absolutely everything. Sticking a name and a number allocated to a ticket on a away game is the easiest way for then somebody to turn around and say, well, I'd bother in this area of the ground. Such and such and such and such, right, we'll have a banning order on them. Bam. I'm racking my brains here while everybody's talking, because I'm sure somebody on Brighton's board's got connections to the Home Office or something like that. And it just feels like a little dipping of the toe into the waters of tagging football fans again and knowing where we're all at and what we're doing, when actually all people want to do is go to the game and enjoy it and have a good weekend. The things with photo ID, you see, I'm quite numb to that, because here in the UAE, we have photo ID that pretty much you cannot do now without. You cannot have a phone without your Emirates ID. I can actually travel within the Gulf on the Emirates ID. I don't even need my passport. If I want to go and see Stu in Bahrain, I just take my Emirates ID. It's accepted at both ends. That's who you are, and everything's on it. It's all biometric fingerprints. Don't even have to see a immigration officer. Just have my face scanned at the thing and put my thumbprint on it, and away you go. So I'm kind of numb to that kind of concept, because I'm used to it. I've been here 10 years now, so I'm used to that idea, and I'm all for it. Actually, it creates a degree of security. But at the same time, for us football fans, it feels like yet another time the government want to create an intervention where there's no need for an intervention. Like my dad says quite rightly, let's solve problems where there's not a problem, because there just isn't a problem to solve there. But there might be if you scare enough people into believing it. You might be if you get the Daily Mail to write enough about it. There might be enough people get up in arms about these horrible football fans again, like they did going back in the 70s and 80s. When they're dealing with different people and they're dealing with a different group. And again, tagging all problems in society on the back of us is exceptionally unfair, to say the least, and downright cynical.
Yeah, definitely is.
Neil,
okay.
Neil, I think the Brighton vice president, who used to be chairman years ago, is a donor and vice president of the local Tory party.
Something that I knew there was some sort of connection, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time for Ask.
Go, Steve. Go.
I'm going to say it's time. Well, time's ticking on. We'll leave this for the amigos on Friday. It's time for Ask George. Alan Little, question for George. What was your first European fixture that you attended, George?
Well, the first one wasn't even in Newcastle. It was in Spain. We were on holiday when Barcelona were playing one of their European matches, and Marjorie went out with some of her friends she'd made on holiday, and I went to the match at Barcelona with her friends, and it was I think it was Barcelona versus Anderlecht, but it was fairly early. first one at the at St James's was my first cup matches.
Okay. Question for George from Westy. This is what was sent to Neil. He says, which two sporting heroes, past and present, would you have round for a meal, George?
Oh gosh. Easy in one way. Sporting, if we're talking football, I don't think I'll surprise any of you if I say Jackie Milburn would be the first choice. And if we're talking about sport generally, as somebody who's just a nice man as well as being a sporting hero, I'd go back as far as Roger Bannister, the 4-minute miler. I met him and he was a super guy, absolutely super guy.
Fantastic. Great question. Alan Thompson says, George, do you believe Nick Pope will be a regular England keeper? He says, as I don't, I said on Monday Night Show, I just hope his confidence hasn't been damaged for the next few games. Will show this.
I think he will be. I think his confidence is bigger than what happened the other night. And I think the benefit he'll get by coming home to his club is he'll have Howe and all the coaches around him and all his players, the mates, will boost him up again. And so I have no fear about that. I think Nick Pope will survive that. But he's going to have to be careful not to do any more like that, otherwise he will suffer. But no, I think he's big enough to survive it. And as I say, all his comforts at home, like Howe and Jones and all of them, will boost him again, and it'll be okay.
Mozza says, ask George who he would choose as the next England manager when Southgate eventually steps down or is fired.
You don't. That's a nice, easy question, isn't it? I've got to say that I struggle when I look at the England managers to get past Potter and Howe at the moment. But if I was going to take a punt on somebody from outside England, I think I would still give Jose a chance.
Jose Mourinho. Okay, Blue Rhythm Boy says, ask George who will win the World Cup.
Brazil.
That's it. Okay, thanks for your questions. We'll have another Ask George next week. Tom Dixon always does like to get in with a bit of news. CC Mariners player Garang Kual to join officially on January the 1st is the news today. John Justice Allen then followed that up with Kual gives us a chance to resurrect the Andy Cool chant. He's got to get in the first team first, mate. But I see where you're going there. Andy H says, it's like when Thatcher wanted to introduce football supporters ID back in the 80s. Luton Town introduced an ID scheme back then, and it was a disaster. Good point. What were you going to say, George?
The lad from Australia, there's a little bit of video on today of him talking at a press conference. He's a character, I'll say that. He's not going to be dull. I'm not sure what he'll do on the field, but he's not going to be dull. He sounds like a real character.
He definitely does. Okay, Stu at the start of the programme suggested that we try and select our team for the weekend against Fulham. Stu, I presume you've prepared in the time that you've had away. So what is your team that you would pick for Fulham at the weekend?
Well, Nick Pope in goal. I think the fullbacks pick themselves, Trippier and Target. But I believe with the threat or the supposed threat that Mitrovic causes, I think he'll play centre-half, Lascelles and Botman. He could
be out though at the weekend. We're not 100% sure if he's playing. It could be a bit of brinkmanship.
It's possible, but I still think Lascelles would be the Broughton man Markham, and Botman can be the complemented left foot at the sweep up behind him and still have the ball playing out. But Shaw was meant to have had a niggle last night as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So that's what I think, and I think then you've got the two Brazilians in midfield with Willock in front of them, and then on the left, I would play Fraser to start with, and then bring Anderson on after an hour. So you still got the energy, and Anderson can help change a game if required. Miggy on the right, and I believe Wilson will be up front.
Okay, I can see Steve and Al Walid scribbling away. So, Mitch, I'm going to come to you next.
Right, we'll go with Pope and goal.
Sorry, mate. But just before you start, I've had to change my phone because I dropped the phone I was using before. I dropped it this morning for the second week in a row. I was out walking and I agreed with Ben Jacobs again. And I didn't drop the phone because of that. I dropped it and it cracked the screen, but I think it's affected the battery because it was on full and it's just zoomed down. So that I've had to like swap everything over and come onto this phone. That's why you can see me stand now from walking, because it's a better picture.
All right, okay. Go on, the Mitch.
Right, Pope and goal, and I think he might go full-backs. I think he might go Trippier and Burn, and I think he'll play Lascelles and Botman at centre-back. I think the two Brazilians pick themselves, and I think Willock will go in there with them. For me, up front, depends on the fitness of St. Maximin, though. It looks like he's probably only really going to be good for the bench, is the word. So, personally, I would go Fraser, Almiron and Wilson.
Okay, what about you, George?
Oh, I can't disagree with my son today. He's picked what I would have picked. I've got to say, my reason is because of if Mitrovic is fit, then his aerial threat could be snuffled out by Dan Burn, and I think that's why I would have Dan Burn in the back four. So, yeah, I would go with the same team as Neil.
Hey, Steve.
Well, I wouldn't. At the back, I would play the same defence that played against Bournemouth, which was Shaw and Burn and Targett and Trippier. I wouldn't change the back at all. I think we were solid there. Obviously, it was a bit of a freak goal they got. Midfield needs a shake up somehow, but I think until we can get Joe Linton, Bruno, obviously, but it's how you play in the other one. Willock. He's not doing it for me in that role, but I don't think Longstaff is. Whether Anderson's fit, you give him a try in there. I'm not sure. If Anderson's fit, I would give him a try in that position. Then up front, obviously, if Wilson's back, great. Again, we don't think Isaac's going to play. Otherwise, I think I would like to have seen him playing on the right. Other than that, it's Almiron and Fraser again, I think. Other player on the right side, Almiron. Can we not try Almiron on the left, where he started when he first came in with when Rafa was in charge, and he doesn't have to do this time wasting cut in that he does all the time. So maybe try it that way around. But maybe they've tried something different, given that we've failed to break down Palace and Bournemouth. Maybe they've been trying things with the players that's been left. And it'd be interesting to see.
Steve.
Trippier and Targett, Botman and Burn, centre. Up front, Miggy, Wilson, Fraser. In the midfield, I would play Longstaff with Joe Linton and Bruno playing a little bit more forward. And I would agree with Steve that Miggy needs to get onto his left foot on the left-hand side rather than the right.
Okay. And last but by no means least, Alwaleed.
Bob, Targett, Dembele, Botman, and maybe Manquillo if instead of Trippier, just to not and he's just back from friendlies. And in the midfield, Fraser, Staff, Bruno, Willock, and in the front line, Joelinton and Almiron. So 4-4-2.
4-4-2. Okay. I don't think Cher's injured. I've got to be honest. I think he'll be okay. Pope in goal. I'm going to go Trippier, Cher, Botman, and Targett. I'm going to go Fraser, Longstaff, Bruno, Almiron, Willock, and Wilson. That's my team. And I think Wilson will play about 55, 60 minutes. I don't think he'll play the full game. And then I think we'll see ASM on. But it's all about opinions. But I just think he'll go and I think he'll play Longstaff in there for some reason at the weekend. Just try and stifle them a little bit. The big thing for us is if Mitrovic is fit. If Mitrovic is fit, he's going to want to prove a point. He's on fire at the minute, and rightly so. And he'll want to prove a point, especially at home. So that's the danger, man. Okay.
I presume Joe's going to give what odds on Friday about Mitrovic lasting the 90 minutes.
He is, no doubt about that, mate. I mean, he's got his work cut out with a few little things we've asked him to do at the weekend, but yeah, 100% he is. He's going to be doing that. So tune in to the Amigos on Friday for all your usual stuff. We've actually got computer generated flyer now of us all, lads, which I think the lads have seen. But there you go, that's quite good, isn't it? He's a talented guy. He's definitely not wasted, is he, doing that job, John? Brilliant stuff, mate. He's got too much time on his hands, and we are having a match day live, by the way. George has agreed to do it. Should be a laugh. We're going to have a few well-known faces on there as well, because obviously I'm not going to match, so it gives us an opportunity to do it. So if you enjoyed match day lives during lockdown, we're going to give it a comeback at the weekend, because we're going to be sitting watching the match anyway in the house. So tune in if you can from 2:00 on Saturday. I'm going to finish up, lads, just with the foundation dinner last night, of course, which saw two more legends installed into the Hall of Fame, and it was Terry Mack and John Beresford who joined that ever-growing list of ex-players going into the Hall of Fame. Two great servants of the club, Mitch.
Yeah, in two very different ways. You know, Terry Mack for 2 stints as a player, and then everything he did as assistant manager. And Bez, you know, I think Bez got better the longer after he left, after he retired, and the longer he wasn't around. Everybody remembered how good he actually was, and then actually remembers he was doing journalist job, and then he was doing, you know, any number of other people's on the left job, because everybody was too busy bombing forward. And if you listen to some of these tales about getting panned for being poor at the back under Keegan, you can understand why they get frustrated with it all. So yeah, and Bez continues to do very much an ambassadorial role with fans before the game. You can't say he's not invested in our club post playing, and so very well deserved as well. You can't deny them places in history, but for different reasons in some respects.
George, it's always good to see these players going in. I was at the very first one with Pavel when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. But it's a great list, and a good night, raised a lot of money, I believe, as well. So well done to them. But yeah, two great players, and of course Terry having his battle with health as well. So it would have been a nice evening for him to get out with his family, you know. Yeah,
and I mean, Neil said it all. They both give their all for Newcastle. They both bought into the Newcastle City Club supporters. The whole thing was they were involved in the whole lot, and you couldn't mistake them. And always the two that I can remember who left us, but never once I have had either say anything detrimental about the club, even though they possibly could have done. Nothing detrimental about the club, about Tyneside, about Geordies, or anything like that, like some people have. Richly rewarded for the loyalty and the effort they put in to make Newcastle what it was. And as Neil says, Terry Mack, not just for the playing, but also for his time as assistant manager, because I think there was even at the last 11th hour when Kevin Keegan decided that was that. I think Terry Mack tried his hardest to persuade him to change his mind, as I'm told. And the only reason he wouldn't change his mind was that he felt that John Hall had sold him up the river by doing the thing with the seats. But Terry Mack did his hardest, I understand, to try and persuade Kevin to change his mind. So, no, well deserved for both of them, and two great players, great players.
Steve?
Yeah, I think, again, as we've said, they both got a place in the hearts of Newcastle for very, very different reasons. I think Terry Mack, 3 stints, as well as the one George saying there about him trying to get him back. Didn't he get him back when he walked in the early days as well? Because I think
first time, yes, he did.
He wasn't going to side kill Klein, I think it was.
So
he was very much the partner with Keegan in those great years. Bez, I think, I've heard him talk in talk-ins and things, and how he very nearly went to Liverpool, but really glad that he didn't, and he came here. Was it Portsmouth he was at, I think, or before he came here? And he very nearly went to Liverpool, but he came here and he had no regrets at all. And he's obviously very much associated with I've seen him going up the ground a few times, almost every match, and he's very much bought into it. And he's not from around here, and that's the same with a lot of players that the Newcastle's in the hearts. And I think the more time we get with other players from the past, we've talked about getting more legends involved in the club, and I'm sure that will come as time develops, and the likes of Dan Ashworth and Darren Eales see the value of these players to help the club grow.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Stu? Oh,
on.
Steve. Sorry, yes. I'm looking at the wrong. I'm looking at the wrong screen, and he was still there, and then he disappeared.
He was when you
Go on,
spoke.
Steve.
That moment. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Bez is that he's just around. I mean, that the double act that Bez now has with Justin Lockwood, for anyone who goes to any of the games and gets into hospitality, you'll know that it's probably as dynamic as the relationship he had with Ginola. It's just a comedy act that they put on. It's great. And Bez is just effervescent. He just buzzes about Newcastle whenever you meet him. We were at a do just a couple of weeks ago at Gosforth Park, and he was there, and we had a good long chat with him. And he's exactly as he was when he was playing. And a great entertainer and a great lad, and well deserved. Does an awful lot of work for the foundation, where he's an ambassador as well. And Terry Mack, well, my memory of Terry Mack, as well as being a great footballer, but it goes back to the 1974 Cup final, where he was the only one that actually sweated in a black and white shirt. He ran his socks off in that game. He was the only one that tried, and he got his reward, because his reward was actually a move back to his hometown club.
Back to Liverpool, aye.
He was one of probably the best signings I think Liverpool ever made, taking one of their own back. And as an England international, he never let England down, and he won all those trophies. And then he came back to Newcastle with Kevin as a player. Fantastic. Love the guy. Always did. Always will. And I hope, as his health is deteriorating slightly, with that horrible onset disease of dementia, that he's being well looked after by his family. I know that he is. I bumped into him at the last home game, and had a quick chat with him and a shake of hand, and he said he was doing well. So well deserved. Pleased for him. Absolutely delighted for his family as well.
Stu, before you disappear, you're on and off like. The trap.
There's problems with the Wi-Fi here as well, so I've changed phone 3 times during the show. They both deserve to be in it. The sad thing for us is none of them won anything with us, and let's just hope in the future, even long after we're gone, there's going to be players that aren't even playing for us yet that'll be Hall of Famers. There's like Terry Mack for what he did as a player. But more so, I think, is the foil for Kevin Keegan. He was the go-between for the players to the manager at that time, and it gave most of us here probably to this date our best times of watching that club. So Terry Mack definitely deserves it. Bez was involved in it, and as Steve Wilkinson rightly said, he's got the club at his heart. He's one that he's came up and. He was cultured, and thank God he did fail his medical at Liverpool, and we took a punt on him. And we've got players. I think anyone from that era, from the team that Bez was in, will probably over a period of time be brought into this Hall of Fame. But you start going back. There's people like the Terry Macks, and there's people. How do you grade it? Who do you think it is? Because there's a lot of unsung heroes over the years. When in effect we were dross, and then you have the people like the Terry Hibberts. I don't know if he's in that yet, but I'm sure him and Supermac and all in that era, all the star players from there will be in. And I'd love the people like the Brunos to be involved. Now the current players, there'll be many from the current players get added into this Hall of Fame. So it's a good idea. It's a way of keeping the ex-pros close to the club, and it's another easy win that often gets referred to, isn't it? It's showing the club's doing the right thing, and it does care for the players. So I'm all for it, both of them, let them be in to deserve it.
Yeah, great stuff. Alwaleed, it's always good to recognise players from the past, isn't it?
Of course, and I remember Eddie Howe when he said the interview between Eddie Howe and Alan Shearer that he spoke to earlier to Kevin Keegan, and it's important to celebrate the past and tell the players the history, so they will unite together and to try to take the same path and make the good name for them in the future. So they watching Newcastle games, old Newcastle games, and their celebration. So Hall of Fame idea, it's amazing. I know it's gonna be very hard to pick because a lot of players will gonna be on the Hall of Fame.
Can I just say as well, Steve, that the Hall of Fame, it was actually part of the Mulliner Trust document. We put it forward to the football club as part of the Supporters Trust way back, and the club didn't want to have anything to do with it. And it wasn't until about 5 or 6 years ago that they picked up and ran with it, along with a number of other items that were in that Mulliner Trust document that Mitch and I worked solidly on back in the day. It's amazing how things turn around and how things come back. But let's see where it grows. Let's see how it grows. It's done through the foundation. It's done at the foundation dinner every year. I think it probably needs to have an event of its own.
Yeah, hopefully an ex-manager may get the opportunity to be in the Hall of Fame one day.
Wall of shame, Wall.
On that note,
that was the answer to the England manager question for George.
On that note, it's a big thank you to Alwaleed, to Steve, to Stu, to Steve, to George, to Mitch, and to you for watching, and everybody who is in the chat. Always a great night, and going to play out the ads. Take care, guys.
All the best.
Thanks,
everybody.
Bye.
Big thank you to skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 273, or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or go to the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD Hemp and Cannabinoid Specialists. You can find them at the GOHD.com. And thanks to 3 Property, who specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces. They are handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickys.co.uk or give them a call on 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Walls and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up underneath the video to like it. It does us a big favour. And click share to share to your social media, such as Facebook and Twitter. Maybe add it to a Newcastle United group. You can also make a donation. Just hit the thanks button underneath if you're enjoying the content and you want to share something with me or the people on the channel. And you can also click join, which means that you commit to maybe a monthly membership, or you can become a cult member. How do you do that? Well, you go to the website, NUFCmatters.com, and you search for membership. What do you get for your £25 one-off payment? You get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. We also have a smart code. There you go, the QR code there. If you put your smartphone over it, it'll take you straight to the website and you can get involved in a cult membership pack today. We also give you something for nothing. If you subscribe to the show, then email john@nufcmatters.com and get your free car window sticker now. We also support the food bank on here, NUFC Fans Food Bank.co.uk. is the Matchday Bucket website. You just need to go there and you can make a virtual donation. Don't forget, during the season on match days, we're at the Dog and Parrot with Supermac, pre-match and post-match. And we're at Pumphrey's, John Anderson and John Gibson, pre-match only. Also got the Takeover anniversary party coming up at the Irish Centre. Tickets are £2 on the door, and you can get your tickets for that from NUFCmatters.com. And Supermac will be at the Terrace Club in Seaton Delaval, Friday the 11th of November. Tickets are a tenner, table is £6.50, and you can get those tickets from 0191 237 0133.